whole meeting for August 15th, 2020. The time is 7 p.m. Ben, would you please call the roll?
Member Orr?
Here.
Member Warren?
Here.
Member Stroya?
Here.
Member Volt?
Here.
Member McLeister?
Here.
Member Matheny?
Here.
6 present.
Motion to excuse member Warwick.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Our first agenda on the item is going to be the city's annual audit. Item on the agenda. Gina.
We were waiting on Mariah Richards.
She's here.
Is she here?
Yep.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, look there. She was unable to attend in person tonight due to a COVID test, so she's going to be here virtually and walk through the audit with us.
All right. Did you give everyone a copy of the report?
Ben has the report and he can pull it up online if you just want to refer to page numbers as we go, and then we can put that on the screen.
Okay. Will do. Okay. Well, thank you all for having me today. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
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 Okay, good. So, I mean, I think the great thing about post-audit meetings is that they let us, be open and transparent. And I feel like it helps continue like a really cooperative relationship that our firm has historically with council and city personnel. So my intention today is to present and talk more about what we did during our audit process. And make it really clear what our office does and looks at during our review of the financial statements. Meetings like this also allow for discussion of any recommendations when we have them, that is, and gives an opportunity to recognize that the city is doing very well. Firstly, I do want to recognize the staff that assisted our firm throughout the audit process. They were all wonderful about being very open and explaining stuff to us and answering any questions we had. And I also want to thank Gina and Jim and her staff for providing us with excellent documentation and helping us by scanning in some of the documents and sending them electronically to get what we need a lot quicker. That really helps us do our job much more efficiently. And it really just made the process very easy and very smooth. And myself and I know my staff has really appreciated that. So thank you. So today I'm going to go over the audit report. So not only does this report tell the story of the audit, but really shows you what will be released to the public. So I'm going to start with the independent auditor's report. So if you flip to page 1, and it's inside the annual financial report actual portion, so it's actually like 33 pages in. Yeah, there is. Okay, so this letter is one of the 2 most important letters within the audit report. This letter describes the scope of our audit, meaning what financial statement areas are subject to our audit. And this is also where we include our opinion on the financial statements. On the beginning paragraph on the first page, you will find, that's where you'll find the opinion. And the city received an unqualified opinion, which is the best opinion you can get. So it's a really good job. So what we're actually auditing, I guess what we call the meat of the audit report is those pages 4 through, I think it's like 205. It's pretty lengthy. So this is what Gina, and then she works with Julian and Group, prepares, and this is what we actually audit. To determine what we audit each year, we do a calculation. It's based off the total expenditures, and that gives us what we call a material threshold. For you all, the materiality was a little over 1 million government-wide, and then we have other amounts established by fund, like general funds threshold was like 900 some $1,000. But then there's like the emergency services levies fund was only like 140,000. So those thresholds help us determine what line items on the financial statements we are going to test. And they also help us determine the severity of an issue if one would arise. Like, for example, if there was a misclassification of like a revenue or something over like $900,000 in that general fund, then that would end up being an audit finding due to the dollar amount. So the next letter I want to go over, it's also page 1, but it's at the beginning of the actual like file. It's only like 3 pages in. Yes, the letter on government auditing standards. So this letter, it mainly describes whether we found anything that we would consider a material weakness, a significant deficiency, or any non-compliance issues. So pretty much this letter is saying, yes, we audited the financial statements according to the appropriate accounting standards, and we did not identify any reporting or internal control issues. So if you had any audit findings, this is where it would be listed, noting whether they were material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, and so on. If you go to scroll down to the next letter, it'd be like page 3, I believe. Yes. So this letter, this one you would only get this letter if you have a single audit. And this year the city was required to have a single audit. This letter mainly describes whether we found anything that would be an issue in regards to federal programs. And if there was any issues, if there was any opinion modifications, if there were any audit findings specifically towards federal programs, those would be listed in this letter. But in regards to federal programs, there was also an unmodified opinion and then no audit findings in that area. And the federal program that was tested this year was the Highway Planning and Construction Cluster, which federal programs we test. That's actually determined by risk and whether they have been tested or not in the prior 2 years. And so last year the American Rescue Plan Act was tested. And so that was considered a low risk program this year and wasn't required to be tested. And then the Highway Planning and Construction Cluster, it was the only federal program tested this year. And it was also considered low risk, but it was just enough we have to get coverage of the schedule of federal awards. And we ended up testing the highway planning program at 100% coverage, since there was only a few items in that population. And when looking at that federal program, one of the main things we're going to look at is, especially with the highway planning funds, is making sure that the city meets their matching requirements. That's very important for that program. And we did not find any non-compliance issues in that area. And nothing arose in our testing. So then I would normally now go over any audit findings or management recommendations when we didn't have any this year. We actually didn't even have any set items. So were there any questions for me? Maybe there's something I could elaborate on more specifically.
I did have one question, maybe more for finance director. So on page 5, I think it is, it talks about just some of the recaps. Let's see if I can scroll to that. In the general fund, there was a reduction in fund balance, about $2.7 million. And my only thought there and only comment is your opinion on if you see 2022 with the reduction in the general fund, are you concerned if 22, 23, or 24 has a reduction? Do you see that in budget numbers?
If budget and audit are sort of the beginning and the end.
Yes.
And the audit report is on an accrual basis. So we need to talk maybe about budget basis being the current cash year and what we're planning to do. So there are some carryovers that we need to keep in mind. But clearly it's not a good idea or a good trend to continue overspending current year revenues, especially the general fund. So I know we were still catching up on some of the projects with the COVID year delaying most things from 2020 and also 21. So we could have had some carryover expenditures in the 22 year that we'll see. But our target carryover balance for general fund is 25% of revenues.
Okay.
So we will budget for that in 2023 as well. When we bring the budget to you in October, that's going to be the target that we're trying to hit.
Okay. I wanted to know where that number was. Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions for Mariah?
Just quickly, Mariah, thank you. As you look ahead, are there any particular issues that should be on municipalities' radar for accounting or use of federal funds as we move into next year's audit? Anything that's jumping out at you that we should pay particular attention? I'm sure Gina will, but it would be helpful for us to know.
Yes. So for fiscal year 2022, something that will need paid more attention to is the implementation of leases. And that's a whole beast that Gina's going to have to tackle. But that's the only other thing I can think of that you'd want to prepare for next year's audit.
Okay. And that's a lease of municipal property, correct? Or the lease of, or leasing equipment?
Yes, it'd be like if the city leased equipment. That's what
Okay.
it would be. That's what the implementation is for.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Mariah.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Ben, would you like to read 3B?
And we don't have to.
Oh, yeah, we don't have to, that's true. Okay. Yeah, this would be Stephanie. Go ahead.
Tina, do you want to kind of hit for B with the opioid settlement, and we had talked about that previously. Anything that you had to do? Yeah, setting up that account.
No, I just need your authorization to set up a new fund. We don't need to request it from the state because we were directed by the state to
Right.
set up its own special revenue fund.
Have they given any idea on revenue towards that
I
fund?
don't have any idea. They have acknowledged that we could receive 2 settlements in a week. It could be 3 in a year. We have no idea.
Okay.
So far, we've received $4,500, I think. And that was the first settlement with no anticipation of what's coming or when it's coming. So we will just continue to amend the budget and by whatever the amounts that we get, so that we're going to have the police department SROs, which is one of the qualifying expenses for drug education, those sorts of things in the schools. We're going to allocate the monies for that program, kind of like the old DARE program.
Yeah.
So when did we get the 4536?
We just received that, I believe, last month.
Okay.
So we established the fund and then we'll amend the budget to be able to spend it in that program.
I think it's coming up on the next agenda item.
Yes.
Great. Okay, and then 3C, do you want to talk about any of those current expenses that we're moving over?
Yes, so we have an appropriation amendment that will include, of course, this fund. We received another $3,600 allocation to the ARPA funds, so we'd like to allocate that for infrastructure projects as well. Starting at the top, this is at the time where we want to true up the budget as much as we can going into the next fiscal year. We have, of course, begun our 23 budget cycle. So the fire levy fund, we budgeted $250,000 in grants for the year. And once those are awarded, then we spend the money. So far this year, we haven't been awarded any grants in the fire fund. So I don't want to overstate the budget. So we're going to reduce it by the amount of grants we have not been awarded. The municipal road fund, the $125,000, Mr. Graham has told us that we're going to carry that money over and add it to next year's money, and then we will be able to do bigger projects on that. General Trust Fund, that is a $250 donation for the SRO program. The One Ohio opioid settlement, that was the $4,500. The Capital Improvement Fund, we're reducing the appropriations by $116,750 from the original budget. We had planned to relocate the salt dome. And instead of relocating that, we were able to save quite a bit of money by rehabbing the current structure. So we're reducing the appropriation by the amount of money that we don't need for that project. The Parks Development Fund, we received donations, and that includes the Akron Children's Hospital donating back half of their money. And then the OPWC, same thing. So the $2 million and the $700,000, those are direct payments. OPWC pays the vendors directly, so we don't have those pass through our books. So we're going to reduce that appropriation to get it off the books. So that's another $3 million that will come off. So these are really just to true up some line items going into the 23 cycle.
And that really helps as we start to move towards budget, which I know some people have already been working on. Okay, thank you. And then 3D.
We need
We need
motions
Oh,
on
sorry.
the other two.
Sorry.
I'll make a motion that we authorize item 3B for the next council agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And I will also make a motion that we authorize item 3C for the next council agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks for letting me move on to that one. Got excited. Okay, the next one is for IT, and this is, actually, I don't even know how many years we've had this company now. Is it 3?
No, we're actually going into our 5th year.
Oh my gosh, I remember when we first did it and the changes that needed to happen, right? So with this, we aren't going to rebid it, and that is through the state. We don't have to do that. We've been really happy with what they've done. This will be the first year that there is an increase of 5% to that line item. But I think the nice thing, and I know this in the nonprofit world and for profit, when you find a system that works, you do want to stay with it, because it takes people so long to train in these systems. And this has worked well for us, and we still get a lot of your emails, or our phishing emails every week, just as far as like one example of security that happens. But I know that it's been a good, reliable system for us. Do you want to say anything else about that?
Just that, like we mentioned, going into our 5th year, it's AtNet Plus. It's a managed service agreement. It centralizes our IT. It gives us the help desk, the services, all of the cyber support. Municipal employees are at risk all the time for any type of a breach. So we constantly test that. That's the emails you refer to. So if you fail the test, you also get that email, and then there's training to make you more cyber aware. So we're really happy with them, and being that it's managed service agreement, we don't have to bid that out.
Right.
So we'd like to just.
And Gina, when you had said about how it centralized our services, when we think back to 5 years ago, every single department had its own IT.
Yes, and they were doing whatever they wanted, and now they give us for budgeting purposes, we get a full equipment inventory report, which gives us the lifespan of all tech that we have, so we know the user, what it is, and how long until we're going to need to look at replacement value for it, so that we can plan for it, and that didn't occur before.
I have a
Thank you,
question.
Kathy.
Yes,
I have a question, and I don't, if you don't have the answer, that's fine, we can find out. So a lot of malware comes through emails, and that's the reason for the phishing test. Do city employees have access to their personal emails on city computers?
you would only have that if you accessed it through a browser. So if you went out to Gmail, is that what you're speaking to?
Right.
Right.
So if they were to open that out through the browser, would that then be a potential infection for the city citizens?
It could, but we have the we have the firewalls in place and the cybersecurity, so it would block it. It would say this looks like a suspicious site
Okay.
you're going to, and some sites are completely blocked. So, for example, city employees can't go to dating sites or job sites or any inappropriate sites.
I know where I work, they literally shut off all personal emails from coming into any company-owned computer, so, as a risk.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, Daryl?
What's the rate and term on this contract?
It's a managed service agreement and it is monitoring maintenance, the entire network, 24/7 support. There is a per user amount. So, we monitor how many people that come on and go off. But I think that roughly it's about $9,000 a month is the full
Okay.
managed service agreement. That's the monthly fee.
Okay. And the length of the contract is?
Year, 1
1
year.
year, perfect. Okay.
That gives us a chance each year to, assess their services
Yep.
and see if we want to stay, and we have plenty.
Okay,
Need a motion to place it on the agenda?
Yep.
I will move.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to street and alley, that is me. I have 4 things on the committee. 4A is the release of a bond for the EMC Land Company. It's pretty typical, pretty straightforward. Does anybody have any questions, comments about it? Okay. Motion, yeah, sure.
Revolt moves.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then moving on to 4B, this is to enter into a performance bond, and I believe this one is held by their mortgage on a lot.
Yes, they
Yes.
elected to give us a mortgage deed and as collateral instead of a commercial bond.
Which is unique, but I mean, works the same. So any questions on that? Any comments?
It's the value of the lot.
The value of the lot, according to them, is a little over 60,000, and the bond they were required to give was a little over 53. So, Rob was satisfied that the lot will more than cover.
Okay. Need a motion to place this on the agenda?
I do.
Revolt will move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 4C. So this is for the grant of the Wise Avenue Northeast Reconstruction Project. I don't think anyone here is going to oppose us applying for a grant. Pretty straightforward. Any comments, questions on this? Entertain a motion to move it forward.
Revolt will move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then B, this is the East Maple repaving project, also to apply for a grant. Pretty straightforward as well. Any comments, questions on this? Entertain a motion for this.
Revolt moves.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 5A, and this is John and Daryl.
Yes, I'm gonna go to my co-chair on this and you can explain it for you.
After we had a discussion about our going to the board and asking them to increase the terms from 2 to 4 years, the charter change, charter amendments. The thought occurred to me that we had not considered in our deliberations vacancies and how that might be affected by a new 4-year term. Right now, as some of you know, if a member leaves council, the charter mandates that council members select the replacement. That replacement serves the unexpired term. I happened to go out 4 or 5 months after an election once, and council replaced me with Mark Soretta. And he finished out the term, roughly 18 months or so. But as I thought about this, if we're moving up to a 4-year term, we should be doing what the townships do on their 4-year terms. And that is, they look at the point, that term at which the vacancy occurs. If the vacancy occurs in roughly year 1 and up to September, there's a date in September, 45 days out, of year 2, the appointee must stand for election at the next election, and that's 45 days. If the election occurs, if the vacancy occurs after that point, then the individual will serve out the remainder of the unexpired term. We could do whatever we want. But the point is that we could have municipal elections every 2 years with 2 flights. So if there's an appointee that comes on board, he or she would fall in with that class that's going on the ballot. And if they are elected, serve out the unexpired term. I thought it was important, as John and I discussed, that this matter be reviewed by council and perhaps some agreement as to placing it after November, when we go to sweep up the rest of the amendments to the charter. This should be one that we ought to consider. And again, the purpose is to make sure that someone's touched an election sometime during that 4-year term. So that's basically it. And again, if you're interested, you can look at ORC section 503.24. That's where the language is, 503.24. That's
That
there.
would be for council and mayor.
That is your call, or our call. But I was referring principally to council, John, and I think that's a fair question. Not that Steve's going anywhere.
Right.
But the replacement for a mayor who leaves office is somebody who's already been elected. That's this guy. And he has not only been elected by the voters, but he's also been, or she has been elected by the council to serve in that position. So we've got, in effect, we've got a double election.
Yeah.
Right.
One large, one small. I don't find any special magic in having a council president stand on the ballot, but if it's your prerogative, fine.
Yeah.
But I do think we should certainly address this issue of the unexpired term for a member of council.
Now, let me ask, so right now we have it that those of council or those in the wards run at one point,
Yes.
and then we have that large run another.
Mhm.
So if the at-large came about and then you had the wards run for that, would it be off cycle? And then does that matter or not?
No, they would just run for the unexpired term.
Got it. And then
So
it'll
they
be
would,
on
they would,
cycle with
they would
everybody.
join their
Got
flight,
it.
go
Okay.
back in with the flight.
And I don't even know if that matters. Like when you think about it, you're still getting everybody to 4 years, but that's what I wondered. Yeah.
Well, and I think here's the other thing too. This is just kind of a little inside baseball for those of you who have not been around on a council appointment. The question to ask a candidate: if you are appointed, will you run?
I was asked.
You were asked.
Yeah, I think, and Mark was
a
asked,
candidate who is not willing to run probably isn't a good bet
right?
at the end of the road. It's just my own personal prejudice. But this gets that issue right to the front. You're not going to come in for 3.5 years. The expectation is you're going to run.
Yeah.
You're going to run sooner rather than later.
If we go back to, if we would add the mayor, Steve would step down, Mr. Stroyer would become mayor, and he loses, he is no longer council president.
He's done.
I know.
Done.
He's done.
You know?
Yeah, once he moves from this chair to that chair,
Okay.
all he's got for us is the veto pen.
Is 45 days enough time to get it on the ballot? Are there any costs to the
Well, that's
city
what
to add it to
that's
the
what the
ballot?
statute says, Dave. That's a great question. The statute says 45 days. If you want to set it 60, I think you probably could. It's your charter. But 45 is basically kind of, it's mid-September. I think we go, and I'd have to go back to the board now. We file in August,
I believe so. I believe it's 60, isn't it?
but
So if it's gonna be a contested race, then
We don't
is
know that.
45 days long enough to get a number of signatures to get on the ballot, to get the information to the Board of Elections, to get the number of people running for this position?
that's a fair question. And maybe I should do a little more digging on that.
I think this is a good conversation to
But
have,
it's,
but we need to look at
Yeah.
what it's going to
to
take.
come back to your signatures, 45 days really puts you, it's a great question, really puts you almost at the point of absentee voting. Okay? So maybe we should be going 60. And that, because that's typically when we already file. We file in mid-August. So maybe what we ought to have is a mid-August filing deadline, and 25 signatures is what you'll need.
You know,
No big deal.
in theory, if you're thinking about it, you're asking would it be enough time to mount a campaign? It would be an off-cycle election, so it's not like there'd be somebody, like, it's not like the person you're appointing in would be at a disadvantage.
It'd be equal footing.
It'd be equal footing. But I still agree, though, I'm wondering if it should be at least 60 days to get the paperwork in order.
And maybe we can
yeah.
run that down with the board.
So for a regular election, according to our charter at least, council candidates have to have their petition in 90 days.
90 days.
Mm,
Okay,
okay.
I can live with that.
But then here's the problem, if it's exactly 90 days, or if it's 91 days,
That guy's getting a ride.
okay,
I mean, that's the inherent risk here. There is no really good way,
right,
because once you get past that threshold,
But that is the way it is for all offices. I mean,
it's the way it
judges,
is for
Yeah.
offices.
legislature, it is the way it is.
mm-hmm,
So, okay.
okay. I like it, I like the premise of it, I think that it, gives the voice and the decision-making back to the people if somebody is appointed in further out than 2 years.
Let's approach, Chairman, John, if we could do this. Let's mull this over. Okay. Let's see if we have any more questions. If they get them to you or me, we'll run them down. We'll bring this back with kind of final form and language, see if it's agreeable.
We'll still need to go to the board election. See what they're inside.
Oh, yeah, we'll have.
Do we need to make a decision before the ballot issue in November?
No, I was just gonna
We
ask
don't
that.
have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't affect.
Here's,
It's after, it's up to us.
Dave, here is the reason I brought it up now, is I wanted us to be thinking
I agree.
about this. And, I wanted voters to understand that as we weren't taking this 4-year matter for granted. There had been some concern. I think this addresses some of it. And again, I like the idea of having the elected members of this council touch the voters,
Mhm.
I like it.
particularly if they're new.
Yep, like it,
So is that an agreeable approach?
sure.
Sounds
Chairman?
fair.
Yeah, I think that.
So do you want to discuss it at the next committee, the whole meeting,
I'll
or?
work that out with the chairman and
Okay.
Because
council
you'll have
president.
questions, there'll be more questions that
Sure.
come up.
Yeah,
and
let's see
we should
let's see where they are, and let's see if anything floats in, and we'll try to get them answered. All we could have is really, to Dave, to answer your question, I'd like a non-binding voice vote that we like this. And we'll let it go at that until,
Maybe a resolution.
until the clerk tells me it's good to go, we're good to go.
Well, we're not gonna bring it for a vote until after.
That is correct. The
November,
official action won't occur till next year,
Till after
but
November.
we just want to tee it up. We're in general agreement.
Perfect.
And I don't think just a general agreement binds someone. It's okay to vote, if you get cold feet or change your mind, it's okay. Take care of it then.
Plus, then we can go to the constituents.
Yep.
And discuss what we talked about.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay, that's it. Thank you, gentlemen
Like it.
and lady.
Thank you, Darren.
It's no motion required for that.
There's no
so
motion.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Adjourned. Take a short break to start the regular. And I'll call to order the regular council meeting, Monday, August 15th, 2022. The time is 7:39 p.m. Opening prayer, Jamie.
Let us pray. Precious Lord, please give us guidance in this meeting, because a lack of guidance causes a nation or a city to fail, but victory is won through many advisors. Lord, let us not be misguided in this meeting so that we do not lead in decisions that produce ineffective results. I pray that you direct our steps so that this meeting can achieve our kingdom aims. Please place you at the center of this. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ben, would you please call the roll?
Member Matheny?
Here.
Member McLeister?
Here.
Member Revolt?
Here.
Member Sherlin?
Here.
Member Warren?
Here.
Member Orr?
Here.
Six present. Member Wyrick is absent.
Motion to excuse, Member Wyrick.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, for your consideration, I have a motion and a second to approve as presented items 5A, B, C, D, F, and G. Let's circle back.
Motion to approve.
Yes, please.
I will make that motion for exempting item
E.
E. Second.
I do.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so 5E. Gina.
So this is the alternative tax budget that we do annually. It is the first step in our budget process for the next fiscal year. The timeline, this needs to be submitted to the county auditor by August 20th every year. It is an estimate of all resources and funds coming in and high level what we expect to spend in each fund as well, including transfers between funds. So while we're calculating these, the primary purpose of the tax budget is to demonstrate our need for the county auditor to collect the taxes, real estate property taxes that are due to the city based on the millage. So we would approve this budget as presented, send it to the county auditor. The county budget commission will then set the millage based on the current valuation, send it back to council. Council will then, end of September, October time period, accept the amounts and tax rates as certified by the county budget commission. And then those would be the taxes that we would collect next year.
Next year's budget will be based on.
The 2023 budget will be based on, our real estate taxes are 18 months behind. So it's based on a valuation from tax year 22, collection year 23.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any comments on that? I have a motion and a second to approve item 5E as presented.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to recognition of the public. At this time, members of the public wishing to address City Council may do so. Each speaker will be granted 5 minutes. Please begin by stating your name and address. Your time and rules will be posted on the screens. This will serve as your first and final warning for all attendees.
Harry Trick, 1127 East Maple, North Canton. It is my opinion that at the latest planning commission meeting, North Canton government personnel were completely caught off guard by events of the evening. Contrary to previous remarks by city representatives and personnel representing Myers Stores, Happy, represented by the Albert brothers and Attorney Swing, appeared to be much more competitive and innovative than thought. So competitive that the applicant decided to table the gas station application. So once again, North Canton citizens, and I even believe some council members, are left out in the dark as to the progress regarding the former Kmart property. Expecting success at the planning commission meeting appeared to have failed when our governing body tried to put the cart before the horse. So once again, this evening, council elects to put the cart before the horse in discussing ordinance 47, 2022, without any clear-cut reason to convince voters to approve this ordinance at the ballot box. Remember, not too long ago, city personnel tried to pull a fast one on city voters by trying to pass a levy for a new safety center. It failed badly. And there's no reason why ordinance 47, 2022, as we now present it to the voters, will not fail badly. When not given facts to the citizens, North Canton voters are not stupid. Tonight, we see on the agenda a new rule, 37, for rules of council, which pertain to public speech. After speaking with some council members, it appears my remarks should have been directed solely to Council President Stroya. I called him, left the message, but no response as of yet. However, I found fault with the entire council for even seeing fit to place this item on the agenda. I thought City Council encouraged citizens' participation at council meetings. This change hardly encourages that. I'm a United States Army veteran, and any hint of belittling or disrespect towards the military, or that, for that matter, safety forces enjoyed by the citizens of this country touches my boiling point. With all due respect to what I just said, I was not going to speak tonight and let time play out its course on this issue. I've never heard of any council member speak of their being in the military. If I'm wrong, please correct me. My perspective in speaking tonight changed this morning as I drove into the south parking lot at Price Park at 7:30 a.m. for my morning walk. I was immediately greeted by 3 flags. The United States flag in the middle and the highest. Beneath these flags was a monument honoring Gold Star families. A monument, Gold Star families. You know what they are? Probably not. I cringed with the thought of any tampering with public speech reflects a total disrespect for North Canton citizens, Gold Star family members, and veterans, along with United States active forces. Mr. Stroya, other council members, is this your calling card? Too many women, men and women, have given their ultimate for free speech and the many blessings we have in this country, and you want to take it away. Council members, what's next on your agenda? Are you going to have the monuments in Butcher Park and Price Park removed? Hypocrisy. Yes, that's what I see when I look at this ordinance with this change of rules. Hypocrisy, I'm sorry, by this council. Thank you.
Else wanted to address council?
Good evening, Council. Glenn Saylor Jr., 340 Reed Avenue, Northwest, North Canton. First of all, I'd like to thank Larry for his comments there. I thought they were spot on in regards to the freedom of speech. But I come tonight to voice my opposition as well to the proposed legislation that would limit public speech to only items on the council agenda. And I would like to tell you a real-life story that was reported in the Canton Repository from about 5 years ago. The young couple purchased their 40th Street home, and it quickly became clear that there was a problem. Anytime a delivery was made to their home, the driver would show up in the neighbor's driveway or block traffic on Portage Street. You see the family parked behind the house, which was accessed through an unnamed and unmarked alley. So their back door was really their front door. But explaining that to visitors was difficult, and the unmarked alley, which was accessible to 5 homes, was nearly impossible to see. According to the article, a lengthy refrigerator delivery was the last straw, but the couple came up with an idea. The wife came to the city council meeting and laid out her concerns during public speaks. Council responded, and the unmarked alley was given a name, and the city installed street signs. David Held, who was the mayor at the time, said, "We're a service-friendly community. We want to make it as easy as possible for people." In this case, the couple alerted the city to a problem that officials didn't even know existed, Mayor Held said. If you want to know any additional information about the story, you might want to talk to Council President Matthew Stroya, because this story is about Mr. and Mrs. Stroya. But if this legislation passes tonight, what would have happened? Mrs. Stroya would have been told, "Sorry, but it doesn't involve an issue on the council agenda, so you can't speak at it at public speaks." It would have been a lose-lose situation for all involved. You would have a North Canton citizen upset that they were denied the ability to speak at a council meeting, and the city may never have addressed the issue of naming an unmarked alley to improve the safety and efficiency of traffic flow. There's an old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There are a few council meetings where more than a handful of citizens speak at public speaks. And it is sad that in a community of almost 18,000 people, that this is so. Instead of discouraging people from speaking at public speaks, this council should be encouraging it. Quite frankly, you're looking for a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. I urge council to strike this provision from the proposed legislation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brad Davis, 1678 Meadow Lane Drive, Southeast, North Canton, Ohio. I'm against this legislation also. I think it was a previous city council. There was a gentleman that came in here, a Master Sergeant, United States Air Force. He had an issue with about a $600 problem that the city was gonna hold on to his money win for his driveway. He had re-concreted his driveway, I guess, and there was something in the laws that said they had to hold on to the money. This guy would have never been able to speak. So putting this off the record and before the meeting is a no. Thank you very much.
Evening, Joseph Bluebaugh. My address is 365 Brook Point, which is actually outside of North Canton, but I do own a residential lot here in North Canton, so hopefully you'll take my comments into consideration. I'm also here to talk about, well, 2 things. The one thing is proposed new rule to limit discussions only to items on the agenda. I think there's already a lot of restrictions, as you can see up on the screens. There's a balance between trying to keep the council meetings efficient, but also allowing the citizens to speak. And I think with all these rules, we've struck a pretty decent balance. And I agree that there's no problem here that needs fixed. And it discourages me because it is anti-democratic. It's shutting down the voice of the citizens to talk to their elected officials. And I think it's, next step, you might think that this went really well, so why don't we just eliminate public speaking altogether, even on items that are on the agenda? I don't think it's a good idea at all to even start going down that path. Again, I think a very undemocratic way to do things. I'm sure we all know that you can email and call the council members and, the city government, but, I've done that many times and I rarely get responses. And I'm not even, I don't have any way of knowing that they're even read. Whereas this is much more personal and I know that people are hearing me and I just think it's a much better way for citizens to express their views. So in the end, yes, I would definitely agree with the previous speakers that this is a bad rule. It does nothing to help North Canton at all. It can only harm. And speaking of that, the other thing I wanted to talk about is that I did send an email to the city council on July 28th, and I'd like to read that here into the record. Dear North Canton City Council, I noticed on July 13th, 3 of the large oak trees along Maple and Main Streets at Pittsburgh Park were removed. I understand they were determined to be hazard trees. I think that diagnosis was done a couple years ago by the owner of Davy Tree, but not done by Ohio Department of Natural Resources, which offers free tree assessments. In any event, the main purpose of this email is to ask that you verify that along with the budget allotted to remove those trees, that there also be funds identified to plant at least the same number of trees to replace those that were removed. I think it's very important that if we are going to remove trees, that they, at the very least, this equal number be replaced so that the trees that are in the city can, continue at least at the same level that they're at, and not that there not be less of them as time goes on. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Stroya, could I address?
No, not right now. We're not gonna do that until after, please. Or follow the rules. You can address in council reports.
Thank you.
First, this room is small. Melanie J. Roll, 308 Porter Street, North Canton. Good evening. I'm here this evening because I believe the proposed change to public speaks will not serve the best interest of the citizens of this community. Tonight, my comments will be included in the transcribed report of this meeting, and that I believe is very important. I've spoken to several of you in the past few days about my concerns. Some council members have proposed, if the change is implemented, that exceptions will be made to folks wanting to speak. Those exceptions would include topics concerning public safety. How will those exceptions be implemented? My concerns about pedestrian safety and traffic flow in the city's core would possibly fall into the category of public safety, and I would be able to speak. But how would I accomplish putting the issue of council members' attendance of regular meetings on either one of the agendas? If I cannot convince 1 or 2 council members to agree to place the issue on the agenda of a council of the whole meeting, my opportunity to speak publicly dies. If the issue does make it to a council of the whole meeting, it would need 4 votes from the council members to be placed on the agenda of a regular council meeting, moved from committee to council. Then I would be able to address the issue during public speaks for the permanent record. This process seems far too complicated, if not impossible. I don't think it is too much to ask of local government to speak in a public forum on a topic of my choosing, with a court reporter transcribing my comments for future reference. I know some of you have gone and looked at what has been said at public speaks or other times earlier. I have found it useful myself. I think Mr. Revolt has as well. We need to keep things as they are. Please don't discourage people from talking at public speaks. Thank you.
Else wanting to address council tonight?
Chuck Osborne, 307 Fairview Street, Southeast Northampton, Ohio. As I was gathering up the items I would need to bring to council tonight, my eyesight kept going back to the agenda. Right here. It says North Canton Regular Council Meeting. Does that spike any concern with anybody here? Council meetings are held on the second and fourth Monday every month. Committee of the Whole, first and third. Why are we even having a council meeting tonight? As I continued to research this a little more, with the assistance of our former council clerk, Gail Calbeck, who has been a line to me on proper procedure, and she brings to my attention Resolution 10, 2020. That's when this council passed council the rules. She tells me that should have been passed as an ordinance and codified. The city has done it since its inception, that all cities do it. If anybody has forgotten what a difference between a resolution and an ordinance is, resolution is a one and done. Ordinances are repeatedly needed, like traffic rules. They're repeatedly used on a daily basis. That should have been passed as an ordinance. And then if you look further on the city's website, you come across a file that says effective 1/25/2021. I don't know if this is an outgrowth of that resolution that was passed 2 months earlier. It's an expanded list of rules of council. In both of those, there is no mention of when council is to hold session. Do you know it's required in the Ohio Sunshine Laws, Chapter 8, that you're required to list in your rules of council the time and place for your meetings? This has been going on for a couple of years. Why? That's what you should be looking at, not restricting the rights of citizens to come up here and speak to every one of you in a public session on the record. If you're going to take that away and say, hey, just come earlier and we'll let you speak then, with no record, they just will stay home and give you a call. And then each of you can forget the call a month later. What you said, what you were worried about, what you were concerned about. This should not have ever even drifted into anybody's brain to do this. Now I'm hearing bits and pieces. I heard today that, this is what Canton does. I've spoken at Canton City Council meetings with no issue. They do ask you that you sign in ahead of time. If you want to do that, go ahead and do that. You're really inundated in this little tiny room with citizens who want to watch their government. Just last week, I went to the county commissioners meeting and spoke. No mention of time limit, although Janet Creighton just jokingly said while I was waiting in the lobby, don't speak for 10 minutes. And this is the group that wants to have 4-year terms. What would you try to implement when you were in here for 4 years? I have no trust, no belief in individuals who can dream up stuff like this. Maybe you're recessed, freed up your brain, and you got imagination run wild. So I don't know whether we should just leave you on recess or have no recesses. Please, do not proceed down this path. And you need to codify your council rules and make sure they comply with the Ohio Open Meetings Laws, Chapter 8. And it would be nice if your council clerk, who had no training, would consult with people who have almost 2 decades of experience.
Thumbs up.
Thank you.
Anyone else wanting to address council tonight? Okay. Moving on to new business.
Oh, yeah. There's one other lady who wants to speak.
Where? Okay. Chuck, that's the last one. Again,
Pardon me?
that's my last warning to you.
That's your first one.
Okay, actually, it's my third. One is during the recognition of public, if you listen to us, follow the rules, that was the first one. Second is you went over your time. Third is you speaking right now. Thank you.
I'm Brianna Holloway. I live at 211 Woodford Street Northwest. I am against that rule. I think everyone should be able to speak about what's going on in the city, about any concerns that they have. I feel like if you take that away, you're taking away their freedom of speech. And another thing that I wanted to bring to attention was it feels like you guys are pushing these new parks and, you know, the survey on the parks, which is fine. I love parks, but what about the sewage issue? I'm still worried about that. My basement finally got redone, thankfully, but I'm afraid that it's going to happen again and then just ruin it all. So that's my biggest concern now is I haven't heard any updates on what's going on with that. So that's my concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wanting to address public? Okay, moving on to new business. Can I have a motion and a second to consider amendments to, well, I'll make a
You should
proposal.
discuss first.
I'm going to give a little presentation here. So tonight we're going to be addressing Council Rules 9, 18, and 37. Council Rule number 9 deals with the committees, and the only change we're looking to make there is to get rid of water, sewer, and rubbish, everybody's favorite word, and to strike that and make it utilities.
For the record, I'm going to miss the word rubbish
I certainly
is in my committee, but okay.
So the next one we're looking is to strike Rule 18 because it's redundant of Rule 14. So that's that.
So in 18, President Stroya, it mentions that all seated members of council shall constitute each committee, but that's not stated in 14. So are you combining the two and just?
Yeah, it's going to be combined.
So
Good.
in the red line version, it doesn't show in 14.
We're going to fix that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then Rule 37 is moving to agenda-only topics. And I'm going to read now what I presented. So, repeated rule violations and personal attacks have compromised the integrity of our council meetings. And they've also raised safety concerns from our personnel. Over the last 5 years, much more than a majority of our meetings have had rule violations. Over that time, and after review of transcripts of the meetings, I've struggled to find anything non-agenda related that could need to be discussed on record with the exception of public safety concerns. Tonight I bring forward this discussion in hopes to have the focus of our council meetings back to the original intent, which is legislation. In addition to the rule changes I've discussed, I propose that we add the following for council to improve accessibility and communication. Number one, I would like a caveat of public safety concerns during public speaks. If the matter would be concerning public safety concerns, then we can go as far as defining it. And there's several ways to do that, which I will be open to in discussion tonight. I believe that that's very important. And Glenn had mentioned public safety. Melanie, you had mentioned it. My story about moving to my street and having it named was a certain public safety concern.
I think the
So-
flooding that was brought up this evening.
Well, I mean, there's multiple things. I mean, public safety covers a very wide breadth of these topics. Number two, I would like to introduce a public availability session. And in a public availability session, we would have a ward councilman and a at-large councilman from 6:15 to 6:45, and we can discuss the terms of that. We can do it every meeting. I'm here anyway, so I'd be happy to do that. We can rotate into council agenda. We'll talk about it tonight. I think having a public availability session addresses several things. One is people not coming here. A lot of people don't want to go to the podium. They're nervous. They get overwhelmed. They'd rather have one-on-one. My issue, again, without the public safety caveat, I could have addressed that. My wife could address that before, or we could have gone to City Hall, which is, again, accessible by anybody at any time. So I'd like to put that on the table. The third thing I'd like to put on is I think we should bring back ward reports. So the terms of that we used to have old ward meetings. Why not bring that back? Why did we get rid of it in the first place? I think that helps improve communication to the public. It's another touch to the public for them to speak on topics that they want. And it's an individual meeting. And so if you want to discuss the terms of that tonight, let's talk about it. And number four, there's also a guest speaker. If you're invited to speak, you can talk about whatever you want. We can talk about the terms on how we get an invited speaker to come up. So we're not taking away your free speech. We're offering other avenues to streamline what I believe is been a process that has been turned upside down. It is impossible, almost impossible to get to a meeting without some sort of violation, some sort of distraction. So with that being said, I turn it over to discussion.
President Stroya, I'm not in favor of restricting speech. If you want to keep items to an agenda matter, then maybe a public speaks at the beginning of the meeting for agenda and a public speaks before reports on other topics. But I think limiting the speech of the residents is not the right direction to go in this case. I think it needs to be open for what their concerns are. There's no other avenue where a resident can speak to council, the mayor, and the administration all in one location at one time. We're going to run into situations where those meetings that you spoke about, where you're limiting it to one or two council person involved. And I think it's best that the council hear the story from the resident in its entirety, and the council as an entirety hear that message. Those are my thoughts.
I am also against this. I've fielded a lot of phone calls, answered a lot of questions. It's 2 council meetings a month. It's 10 minutes for a month for the speakers. And I think, 10 minutes, we owe it to our voters to give them that time. And, we have enough rules that someone had mentioned during the public speaks, and we follow those rules. And I just think that it is, where else can they see the whole administration? As far as ward meetings, I go and talk to my voters every week. I'm out there talking to them in my ward. many of us, all of us have a city phone. Okay? Are we returning the calls? I return every call that's given to me. And if the person lives in my ward or don't live in my ward, I represent all the people of North Canton. And I thoroughly enjoy the public speaks. It gives us other ideas. And, I think it was Mr. Davis during his public portion had brought up a gentleman. It was this council where we rewarded him that $500. And he wouldn't have been here if we wouldn't have given him that.
Public safety.
Well, public safety. Well, that's $500, but it would happen on this council, and it was a good thing. It was a good thing.
But we're not permitting that. We're not excusing that.
No, we're not. Oh, that's one thing. There's a lot of other things that are brought up to our attention, and I'm totally against this.
I'd like to weigh in a little bit too. At first blush, I found myself against this. But when you couple it with the public availability session, I think it makes you more accessible to the public. I mean, I'm not talking about the fact that I've got a city phone, 2 city email addresses, a city voicemail box that immediately prescribes any message or transcribes any message to an email. I've got a clerk who will call me if somebody stops in or calls me or calls for me. There's no shortage of ways to get in touch with us. But I think I have a little bit of a unique perspective compared to some of the other, my fellow, 8-month in council members. I was a member of the Planning Commission and then later chairman of the Planning Commission for a total of about 5 years. I've seen people stand at that podium in council meetings and in other city meetings where they're shaking, they're scared, they're nervous. And I think that this is a way of giving them another way to reach out to their council member in an official capacity, in person, where they know that they can reach out to us without some of that fear and trepidation, I guess, that they may have. So I see when you combine all the ways of getting in touch with us, along with this public availability session and reinstituting ward meetings, I don't see how we're silencing people. I think that we're giving them even better ways and more ways to reach out and talk to us. And I think adding the caveat of the public safety issue, I think that covers a wide variety of things discussed. Mrs. Roy, we had a fantastic conversation earlier today, and the things that you brought up at the podium, crosswalks and traffic safety. You talked about the flooding. Those items would be covered under that provision of public safety. At least as far as I'm concerned, flooding would certainly be a matter of public safety. So I think both of those examples would certainly be covered. Again, I don't see us silencing people. And I guess I also am curious, and I know that Ben, you have the data. What are other communities doing around us? Yeah. I just wanted to maybe be discussed a little bit more. I mean, I've asked them, yes, I know what, the other communities are doing. Yeah, and I think even it's fair to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, City of Cleveland, I think for a while didn't even have public speaks.
Cleveland had no public speaks until quite recently, and they just added public speaks to their committee process, and it's limited to agendas on the agenda items only, but they do have they're a statutory city, so they only have ward council members, and they do have a pretty robust ward meeting system,
right?
Which is their primary, which sort of functions as what our public speaks do.
So I, as I state, I was initially not in favor of this at all, but I see this as enhancing being available to our constituents. And I've often said, and jokingly, I think I told you on the phone today, Melanie, you can call me whenever you want, maybe not at 3 o'clock in the morning, but you can call me whenever you want. I'm always accessible, and I assume that my colleagues are as well. So coupled with an availability session, ward council meetings, I find myself in support of this item.
You don't feel that that's taking away?
What are we taking away, John?
You're taking away their 10 minutes a month.
Well,
We're adding, you're adding
Well, they
things.
can still speak.
They
on the
can still
agenda.
speak an agenda. I mean,
What part are we taking away?
Well,
They are
The
able to speak on
purpose-
the agenda.
the purpose of the public speaks, correct me if I'm wrong, as I am only 8 months into this, but I guess I can go back to my time on planning commission. The purpose of having somebody speak at a meeting is to weigh in to items that you're discussing on the agenda. Is that correct?
What's
I
the
mean,
purpose?
and if there's something else, bigger picture item, my phone works, my email works. Please come and see us at the session beforehand.
but are we all answering those calls?
I know I am. Are you, John?
Okay.
But John, I don't think at this point, for 8 months, you can look at anybody and say, are you answering that?
When residents from their ward are calling me, yes, I
No,
can.
you can't, because you don't know who to believe, because people do lie and they do not tell the
Right.
truth. So you don't
Beyond
have
that,
any,
beyond that,
you don't have that data. But one thing that I will
well,
say is,
what about
what
the
has
attendance
happened,
that Melanie?
call Ben. He has the attendance record. It's documented. Call Ben. That's easy to find out, because that also has been misrepresented greatly throughout the
Recently,
years. Yes.
recently it has.
No, over the years.
So,
No, over the years, John. I've been here over 10 years. I
okay,
can certainly speak to history. I have the data. We can look at the attendance records for the
well,
the
I'm
past
just,
20
what
years.
about attendance?
Well, I'm not going to discuss it.
No, no,
That
that
I'm not
would
gonna
be,
discuss
that would be
attendance right now.
something that maybe
Then
we
if
brought up a
Melanie had
couple
a
times
problem,
tonight.
then that's fine. Then let's find out for Ben, which we've done numerous times. Attendance has not been an issue for the past 10 years that I've been here.
No one said you.
I understand.
No one said you.
I'm even counting my other members.
Okay,
But I'm not arguing this.
okay.
What I want to say is that one of the reasons that we're looking at this is live. So we do have other people that are trying to buy houses, that are trying to buy property, that are trying to actually invest in our community.
Correct.
So when people speak, possibly mistruths, possibly go off on tangent, possibly explode, start saying poems to us, tell stories that don't have any account,
Sorry, Matt.
and have manners like that.
I'm sorry.
Manners like that, it isn't appropriate, and it does deflect. We have almost lost opportunities for people to invest in our company, in our community, because of what certain members have done. I have people, umpteen people, when you said you had numerous people that call me, they say I would never show up at that place. It's crazy time that night when people come up and speak with the things that they say. They say, how are you listening to what they are even talking about? They don't even talk about the agenda half the time. So that's a problem when we have constituents that think that people aren't even looking at the agenda. That means that they really don't care about moving our organization forward, which is our city, which is our community, which is part of Northeast Ohio. And then maybe you don't care what other organizations are doing, but when you see that the city of Canton or Cleveland or Alliance, that they do have rules. And whoever is here, whether it's Ben or myself or Matt, who have to gavel down people and throw people out. That's a problem.
It is,
And that's what people see.
but do we agree with every time someone gets tossed out of here?
It's the rules.
the
He's
rules,
following
yes,
the
he
rules.
should.
He's following the rules.
The rules that are set forth to make sure that we are
I
safe,
think
that our
there's been a couple of
constituents are
times he
safe.
made the rules fit for our own.
Okay, well, those are the rules. And we want to make sure that our citizens who are sitting here feel safe as well.
Okay.
And
how
I've
many-
had friends and constituents and board members and other boards that have said, I don't even feel safe coming to your meetings anymore.
Okay. Now, with that being said, people coming to the meetings, it's a poor attendance. But how
Exactly.
how many people watch us on YouTube and other
Very
places?
few.
Very few. Why is that?
That's the way people are. They get to tune into what they want.
So,
That's the way of our world. You can either watch ESPN, you can watch CNN, you can watch Fox. You don't have to choose
but
anything.
these people who come and speak,
And we're
are
going to allow
coming
them to
in,
speak.
and we're,
They are allowed to
as long
speak
as it's on the agenda.
to move the agenda forward. This is what our job is, John, is to move this agenda forward. That is our role. It is to make the lives of our citizens better, to help on an everyday basis. That's our job. It isn't to get in the weeds of people who don't like us or people who want to make fun of us or distract or have people ask if we have served in the military or have kids who serve in the military, please go. Please go. I have both family members. I have Gold Star families that we represent. So don't you ever talk about those families to me.
Ma'am,
Bad.
go to September
No.
29th,
No,
2019. John,
we continue
read that.
to have those
Yes.
families around. And it isn't up for those people to judge us on that. Don't you ask me about service. I have two people.
I didn't ask you about service.
That's my point.
I mean, we'll agree to
So
disagree.
that is what we're here for, to follow the agenda.
Daryl? Yes, yes, please.
I'm here tonight because I spoke at a public speaks regarding tax evasion. Great satisfaction. And from the podium to the seat, I became a candidate. I happen to be a strong proponent of community government oversight, public participation. But I will tell you that I am no longer convinced that our public speaks serves the purpose for which it was intended. Comments that are made at the podium are not informed. They reflect opinion with little or no research. Comments are not anchored in fact or reason. They're intellectually dishonest. No policymaker in his right mind would base decisions on flawed input. As I've sat here over the many months, I've become convinced that this Public Speaks has become a platform to criticize and attack council, the administration, and staff with false and misleading statements, or to mislead the public on public issues of great significance. Mr. Saylor tonight, in my humble opinion, did an excellent job. His decorum was spot on. I may not agree with him. But the point is, he presented his views like a gentleman. Unfortunately, Mr. Tripp is gone. But I happen to have Mr. Tripp's comments from one of our recent council meetings to illustrate my point. Mr. Tripp states, and I quote, "City loses $426,000 grant to renovate Bitzer Park." We didn't lose it. The money went to Dogwood. But Mr. Tripp reports it as fact. Mr. Tripp complains that the city did not capture the Diebold headquarters, which went to Hudson. As if somehow this was our failure. Had he bothered to use publicly available information, he would have realized that Diebold made his decision and moved into an existing leased building in Hudson. And it did so for a reason. Proximity to airports and its executives wanted that site. They didn't want to wait for 3 or 4 years to have a headquarters facility constructed. But that's not the impression that Mr. Tripp leaves at the podium. This is the one that I particularly love. We heard of 300 new jobs at Meyer and now a $20 million building. But as of this date, nothing but confusion. I don't know who's confused. I'm not. And I don't think the people around this table are confused. And I don't think people in the community who are paying attention are confused. Just a mile from my home, he says, Marathon announces a plan to demolish their old facility and rebuild a new one in a matter of 6 months. This is down in the corner market in Easton. Now think about it a second. Two very different projects. One's a gas station. The other is a $20 million retail facility that has a number of detailed considerations. But the point is that somehow the city's asleep on this. Not true. And he knows it. For those of you who are in the audience who spoke on this, I think the fact of the matter is we all know the secret. We have individuals who frequent this room who do not practice decorum and violate the rules. And I would say to anybody who knows it and doesn't say anything, shame on them. Shame on them. We've heard a great deal about rights. I would say there's also responsibilities. We're attempting to manage this city. We had a long discussion tonight about finance. This city turns on economic activity. So, I think of some of the things that I hear in our practice, like smoking cigarettes. It's consequences are unseen, but they're often lethal. How so, you say? First of all, is this corrodes public trust. Misrepresents an issue at the mic so you can get it on YouTube. That's really going to help our community. Doubt it? Proof's here, and I can go back through the record. It does discourage participation because people don't want to come out and mix up here. And I think your own conduct on this decorum issue really tells me a lot about the rest of the community. They don't want to get in here with sharp elbows. And finally, here's the other point, is this. We really don't know how it damages our city's economic future. We don't know who watches it. We don't know who's making real-time decisions on investment in this community because we're never going to get a chance. And I'm telling you right now, if you don't think that happens, dream on. This community needs capital investment. And instead what we get are these hair-on-fire statements. Oh, yeah. Mr. Osborne, you're lucky we're not talking about your comments about the adjudicatory hearing. We'll save that for another time. But it's a perfect illustration of these hair-on-fire comments that are without foundation. They're an opinion. I think the public can participate, and it should. But it's not participating in the standard that's helpful to the overall civic discourse. It's not happening. I would say this, I'm going to support some changes here. As I've often said, I'm willing to experiment. I can re-liberalize it. But the fact of the matter is, and I want to point this out, it's notion of availability sessions. Every government entity uses successfully availability sessions to deal with complex issues. Whether it's the county, whether it's the state, whether it's the federal government. This isn't new. It's not untried. It's a great way for dialogue to occur. And many times you can get to an issue pretty quick if you have the right people at hand. And I frankly think it's worth trying. But I come back to this. This community, and Diorio and I talk about this all the time, is facing some pretty serious challenges. And the challenges aren't the people around this table or the administration. The challenge is going to be how we're going to deal with change. I don't hear anybody at that microphone constructively, intelligently
in a reasoned fashion, talking about those issues. And I come back to this one more time. Everybody in here knows what the problem is. Shame on them for not saying anything publicly. Rein this behavior in. I have asked before, months ago, for people to knock it off. And they haven't. It's like a bad record on a continuous loop. You want a great council? Trust me. Nobody who's worth their salt is going to sit up here around this table and take a beating every Monday night. Ain't happening. So, all of us who are here, we better figure out how we're going to march forward. But something's got to change. It's not sport, it's not fun, it's damaging. So, Mr. Stroya, if you want to lay this out in some fashion, if anybody wants to
I have
ask any
another
questions.
comment I would like to make.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have rules in place for decorum. These are important rules and they need to be enforced. But if we're going to make rules of council to manage to the few, I don't believe that's the correct course of action.
Well, Dave, I would simply say this. I don't drink and drive. A minority do. And we got a whole set of rules for people who drive drunk. We always have rules for bad behavior. It's interesting. The New York Post just did a story not too long ago. I don't know if anybody saw it. But they looked at, 400 felonies, 1,000 felonies. I don't know. They were committed by this incredibly small number of people. They're driving the crime wave in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Our problem here isn't the public. Our problem are two people who dominate our agenda every Monday night who...
What if it opened it up, though? What if instead, if we were able to manage that, and then we had more people come to the meetings because they were civilized, because there weren't personal attacks, because it was agenda focused? I mean, like Jamie, he listed all the ways people can call us. They call us all the time. I love stories. I love that people can speak. But it's 2022. I am tired of defending myself for being a woman, for being a mom, for being called unpatriotic. That isn't why I signed up to do this. I have 2 kids in the military. Stop it. They're serving now. Stop this nonsense. And it goes to all of us. That's not fair. And if we want people to continue to put their names on ballots, and we're talking about if you serve, and you're nominated, you better get up there and be ready to take a beating at the polls. We don't look like we're women friendly. We don't look like we're family friendly because of what we allow people to say. And some of you have spoken to me. You've written me emails and you've said, way to stand up for yourself. Well, stand up for me. Stop talking about attendance. Talk about real things. Ask me, Melanie, if you have a problem with my attendance, ask me. Talk to me. Any of us. That's okay. But we can do better. I know we can. And we can manage that we want people to still talk. I get calls all week. Talk to them. And if there was something, like you said, Matt, if we want someone to come and speak to us, there's no way if you said to me, I have a constituent or I really think they should speak. There's no way that I would say, I don't think so. I don't think that makes our call. John, if you said the same thing, I wouldn't say no. But I would love that they would talk to you first and say, this is what it's about. And it would be reasonable. You would have talked to them. It'd be conciliatory. It would be obliging. It would be courtesy.
The other thing I wanted to add on to what you're saying is, and I think it's briefly been touched on over here to my right, is comments directed towards city employees. And I know President Stroya and I had a conversation today. I view us elected representatives, and certainly the mayor as well, we're at a different level. If you want to come here, not that it's fun, but you want to come here and lob arrows at me on a Monday night, I guess that's what I signed up for, although I'm certainly not going to speak for Stephanie. But I get frustrated when I hear continued baseless attacks towards some city employees. that I think is wrong. I at one point in my life, I majored in human resources, so I don't profess to be the expert that Catherine is down there in human resources, but I think some of this stuff borderlines, and again, not towards the elected officials, towards our city employees, I think it borderline approaches being a hostile work environment. And I think that's something also to consider, that some of these changes are not for us to avoid those arrows on a Monday night. It's for baseless and repeated attacks towards city employees. Just something to consider.
And Dave, I agree with you. Like, we make these rules for the few. I mean, you've been in schools now these days. You know what happened in schools, for example. They're now in lockdown situations across our country. Because of the few. But it's every single situation like that. I mean, I have council members now saying, hey, do you want to walk out at night? Do you feel safe anymore? You know, based on different things. We don't want our people to feel like that. And if we're projecting that image, then what are they thinking about our community?
Back to the fact that we do have those rules for decorum, and that's what needs to be enforced.
How do you enforce them?
President Stroya, I think you need to find a way to do that.
Okay.
I mean, those are the rules that are set in place,
from
and we put you in the
personal-
position,
Let's go by it. Let's go
position to
sample
enforce
by
those.
sample. When someone attacked Ben tonight,
Does it fall outside of those rules?
Yes.
does
Then
it? You
you
tell me.
need to stop it.
Okay. Using your example right there, nearly every meeting, I would kick 2 people out. Nearly every meeting.
So
I've gone through it.
It's kind of like if you start a meeting on time, people will show up on time. So the point is,
When does
we
it
need
stop?
to enforce the rules that we currently have and not limit the public's ability to speak about what's a concern on their mind. If it falls within those rules that we currently have, then why would we manage to the exception and limit what somebody can talk about? The topic, the subject, what's on their mind, what's in their heart, what's driving them to step up to the podium and speak to council, the mayor, and administration all in one setting.
But Dave, then we talk about how that looks to the public, how that looks to the Myers of the world, how it looks to the DeHoffs, you name a business, I don't care. How it looks to our ordinary citizen. Oh, there's North Canton again, they had to kick 2 or 3 people out. That's the show they run every single week. That's not what we want. Like, why can't we do better?
I'll stick to my point.
I get it, but.
Dave, let me answer, let me come back to your question, this fashion. There are 2 elements here that are at play. First is the decorum issue. Enforce the rules. But the second, as I suggested with my citation of Mr. Tripp's on the record comments, is content. And I'm old-fashioned. I believe in personal honor. I believe in telling the truth. I believe elected officials shouldn't lie. It's astonishing. We shouldn't lie. And I expect the people who appear at that podium to reflect in our meeting. I expect them to reflect those same values. That is my expectation for them. Check the facts, get them straight, formulate an opinion. And our problem up here, Dave, is that, frankly, we've got a couple people who don't tell the truth, don't get the facts, fulminate in a malicious way. I can go to some recent comments that were posted about the Planning Commission meeting, impugning the integrity of the Planning Commission. Hitting illegally. Legal counsel's right there. As a matter of fact, 2 of them were there. I think our expectation is this, and Mr. Tripp said that I think he was referring to me, we were a little tough on some of our speakers. But the bottom line is this, that's why I expect, if you're up here to influence public policy, get your facts straight. Do some homework. Get it right. And B, like Mr. Saylor, you don't have to go off the deep end. Lay it out. Reason. Linda Johnson said, come on, let's reason together.
I can agree to disagree. What I can't tolerate is being disagreeable, and I will not tolerate a liar. And I don't think there's any place at that podium for an individual week after week after week is untruthful. It's just that simple. And again, because it's not what just happens here in this room. It's what the community and others see. It speaks about our standards. Again, old fashioned. If I was going to invest money, I'd sure as heck look at the video. And trust me, it happens a lot more than you think.
Looks like when people do jobs, they look at your Instagram, they look at your LinkedIn,
They
they
look
look
at
at
all.
everything.
Everybody does their homework.
Yes.
Let me just give you two quick examples. When I was with Jobs Ohio, we had a little company little community out in Western Ohio, and they couldn't figure out who these people were in town. They showed up at all the lunch spots, all the breakfast spots. Nobody could figure out what they were doing. They showed up at a council meeting one night. The company didn't get the job. The community didn't get the job doing a major Honda supplier. They didn't like the way that the council ran. They didn't want to work with them. It's too risky. Boom, gone. Little company over in Worcester, 1 million square feet, 90,000 square feet of corporate headquarters. Founded there. Every tool that you could want for a modern manufacturing facility. 1 million square feet, all ceilings, rail service, highway, little airport, land corporate jets. Company took its headquarters to Bath. Well, there were some good reasons for it. The executives wanted to live up there. They didn't want to live in town. Too long to drive down 585 in the morning and the afternoon. But one thing happened. That company went to the community and asked for a tax abatement, just a small one, on a little capital investment downtown Worcester. And they got a ration of grief. And the company said, we're leaving. They were leaving for some other really good reasons. But this was the straw that broke the camel's back. They said, you all come to us with your hands out. Everybody, we write you checks. We asked for one thing. You beat us up and embarrassed us. They left. That's the world we live in.
But to your point, someone going to the podium to speak entirely about an item on the agenda is not a guarantee that you're going to get 100% truth or falsehoods or exaggerations.
I understand that, but here's what I've got, Dave.
It would eliminate personal attacks.
I can look at
Quorum and rules for that.
I can look at the sort of free-ranging open mic, and that's where these abuses are coming. Because I've read the minutes. They're not necessarily about an item on the agenda. They're 5 minutes to just declare it, just roam around. That's the problem with it. Is it, again, not truthful, corrosive? I know, I guess it depends which one to work with.
If we go back today, we do have these rules. Mr. Tripp was escorted out today. What will his punishment be?
You can't ban him.
Well, we could suspend him, or we could have a
I'm not sure legally you can.
I would like to get some type of opinion on that, because if you're gonna get thrown out of a meeting, there should be. So what would stop them from continuing to do that?
Restraining order.
You have to have a restraining order.
That's it.
That's
We
it.
looked into it.
Gotta have a
You know,
restraining.
just looking at that, we have the rules, but what are the consequences for disobeying the rules? So we change the whole way of doing things because of a couple thorns.
Yeah.
It's a slippery
Again,
slope. What do you consider a personal attack? What do you consider truth, not truth?
Right.
So,
On both
I mean,
ends.
do
It's
you
on both
want to
ends.
really start making those decisions right away? And I take offense when you're saying it's on both ends.
Well,
Because we're not talking about us right now. We're
Right.
talking about.
we don't personally attack.
Exactly. Well, I mean, there have been examples.
There
in the
have
past
been
that
some
happened,
times,
but it's usually not
I have
going
never,
that way.
you know, but we need to, if we have these rules, what are our consequences for 'em? We think, but let's try to get some type of legal
But we
opinion.
have asked about restraining orders and
It's being
you
looked
can't do it.
Is it being looked at?
Yes.
But
Okay,
here's-
that would be.
But John,
something
here's,
to know.
here's the point is this. This is a prepared statement, right?
Right.
This is not an off-the-cuff comment. This was read to us because it included poetry, so I read it. And I had poetry of my own, but I won't.
I just think,
But here's my point, is this individual knowingly made a false statement that we had lost $426,000.
or we lost Debo's headquarters. We never had Debo's.
We never had it to lose.
We never had it to lose.
We got half of it, frankly.
Well,
But the point is this, and this goes to my point, is that Mr. Saylor can stand up and deliver great comments. They're factual. I may disagree. I frankly agree with some of it, and I disagree with some of it. But the bottom line is, that's the model.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm not seeing from the regulars is the model. And everybody who's standing up says, oh, I want to protect this. Nobody's really recognizing the consequences of that behavior, potential. And I wish I could document, because I can't.
Well, and the other thing is, I mean, and you all have copies of this, but Ben did put together. So we have number of speeches or meetings, there were 167 made by 5 people, which accounted for 64%. I do believe that, and part of them, for sure, they talk about the agenda. So they will still be able to talk about that. We are not taking that away. And then I think the rest of the people all spoke on the agenda, truly. Or it would fall in that reign of public service and national disaster. One of you spoke about something, that happened, and then we would let them speak. So I feel like we're just trying to maintain that decorum, but. And then people can get a copy of this, correct?
The public record, yeah.
So what would our next step be?
Oh, we would put it on the agenda.
Yeah, my, as I introduced,
You're right now.
I have 4 things that I brought up for discussion. If people want to add to that, if you'd like me to just add that, if it goes forward, I can add it.
All right, let's
My
do
language.
this to move this along then.
Sure.
I'll make a motion to amend item 9 or article 9 of our rules to change the name of the committee from water, sewer, and rubbish to utilities. Would you like public utilities or just utilities?
Just
So
utilities.
pursuant to council rules, we need a motion to consider,
Motion to
and then
consider.
we'll actually vote on the rules amendment.
Okay, very good. A motion to consider it. Okay, I'll make that motion.
I will second the motion to change the rubbish to utilities.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to strike item 18 with the corrections that have been printed for item 14. Dave, does that cover it?
I don't see on my plan here the corrections to 14 to include all members of council on each committee.
I believe what Member Matheny would like is, in Rule 18 as currently written, everything before the word "and," the first "and," to get moved to Rule 14. Is that correct? So it would say the part that says all seated members of council shall constitute each committee of council. You would like that phrase moved to Rule 14?
Correct. Thank you, Ben.
Does that do it?
Yes.
Okay, that is the motion.
Then I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. So what are we going to include in item 37, Mr. Clerk?
Okay, in item 37, I would like to include the public availability section. I would like to include the caveat for public safety concerns And I would like to formalize a guest speaker slot, I guess, that would be before public speaks.
And is that,
Beyond what we currently have.
if we,
I just want to see it more formal.
okay, so would that be like if someone came to us, or is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
or, you know, like as it exists right now, if we have somebody that wants to give a presentation, they're considered a guest speaker.
Yes.
They're not
Let's,
part of.
let's do this, let's do this, Mr. Ruthini, see if this helps a little bit. Let's have a phrase, Ben, that says something to the effect that any council member may sponsor a guest speaker for appearance on the agenda. So that way,
Can we formulate this and discuss it as a formal proposal and how it's actually going to be written and what it's going to show up like in the next meeting?
yes,
opposed to
that's
trying
the
to-
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to vote on it the next meeting. I want to make sure that
Right.
we have a discussion of how it's written, because I'm still not
I need to wrap my head
sold
around it.
on
too.
limiting
I'm
speech.
gonna do my own research.
Okay, true.
Right. But I like the ideas that you've come up with. Like, I think it's very forward thinking.
That is fine, but please still tell me what you want me to write.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so what I would like to see is similar to the language we have for inviting a guest speaker, but I want it more formal and more put into the council.
Could we do this tomorrow or Tuesday or Wednesday?
Yeah.
Could you have something in writing shipped out to everybody for an up or down?
Or Pat
We
or the
can't vote
mayor.
on it, but just for
Yeah,
comment.
that's great.
Let's put it that way, for comment.
So you want me to synthesize this for tomorrow to send out a draft to you? Yeah.
Wednesday. It's, yeah. It's,
Mhm.
Get some time, make sure it's,
always-
and just make sure everybody's
Yeah.
comfortable with the language.
Now for the ward reports, I'm going to put that on the ward people, but
So,
if you want to do a ward report, I think you should do it.
now, are you talking about having a ward meeting or just
I
updating
would
about the
say-
ward?
Whatever you want. I mean, let's talk about it. What do you
Well,
guys want to
so, I mean, at the end, we're allowed to speak on anything regarding anything. So are you talking about?
No,
Yeah,
I'm talking something separate, that you would have a meeting and you could use this place if you want.
Like
Say, hey,
once a
people-
quarter, once every
Sure.
6 months?
Or
something
whatever
like
you
that.
guys
Jeff and I have done
decide. Right.
Jeff
yeah,
and I did
yeah.
that. It does get tricky. It did get tricky because it was like tricky like regarding when you could do it. So you had to be in a time frame where like you weren't advertising for election,
yeah.
something like that.
Yep.
But we had pretty good response. I mean, I think
Yeah.
Jeff and I had maybe 60 people and they just wanted to come and hear kind of what things were going on. My homeowners association tomorrow night is having Chief Kemp and the mayor and myself speak, and they initiated that. You know, I've spoken at different homeowners associations, so I think that that's a nice way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like you said, John, like you're out there,
Right.
so you could initiate some of that
And
yourself.
I wanted to have coffee with the council.
Yeah.
So I approached a couple businesses. They were against.
Do it here. Do it here.
Yeah.
I've got a coffee machine.
Well,
You've got a
right, you know, I mean,
meeting
but-
place.
He'll give you
Some,
carrots.
but then again, it's, if you get them off of the,
I agree.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Off of the territory, it might be
Yeah.
a lot better. That's what I was thinking with the rest.
But
But I'm not done with it. I could have it in a gazebo in the
Yeah.
park or something like that.
I've done
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So,
but I
you
think
know.
that's probably more ward related. And if you guys wanted to come, I think that's great too. But I like that
think-
idea.
I
Matt.
mean, I think it'd be great to have a ward person and a large person.
Mhm.
Don't
Yeah.
make it a rule, though.
You know, but
I don't want to make it a rule now. I mean, it's just, I want to encourage it. I think we should reach out to the
Mhm.
public.
you have to, they're the people who put you in office. You
Absolutely.
gotta listen.
Yeah.
So maybe we don't add that to rule, but I mean, I sure would like to encourage that.
Mhm.
But you guys tell me. I mean, I'm bringing this up is to include all of you in this.
Right.
Let's hear it.
Okay,
I like the idea of having the ward meetings, but to Stephanie's point, I wouldn't have thought about there being timeframes that you have to avoid.
Yeah.
You know, I guess I kind of would have thought of it from the naivety of being a relatively new council person that, oh, well, if I've got my campaign logo on it, it's campaign driven. If it's not,
Right.
then it's not. But I never
Right.
would have thought about, so is there information out there that,
There
you know,
is.
as,
Yeah.
okay.
Because the city will, they have the whole list, so it's real easy to pull, it's real easy to mail. I wish we could email, but it's emails, but pretty simple to put together.
For the people from your ward.
Yeah.
You can get that.
Well,
support, like-
well, no, I guess what I'm talking about is the timeframe that we have to work within. So what is that timeframe? Is that something that
I
you
think
know,
it's 4
or
months, you're not allowed to prior, something
what
like
was it,
that.
2 months?
4 months, I
4
think.
months?
Yeah.
But you know what you could do, Jamie, is this,
Yeah.
is that if you want, let's be realistic. Most people would want a Saturday meeting,
Yeah,
okay? Or maybe a night meeting.
Later
So-
evening.
So you go down here to the big room, okay?
mm-hmm,
You got 4 corners.
yep,
You got 4 wards, all right? You got the mayor and his administrative team in the center.
Yep.
The engineer, the finance director. You have your meeting, you grab them as you need them, and you got your meeting.
that's actually not a bad idea, because then it becomes, it certainly is not a campaign thing if you've
Now,
got,
John, you can't hog all the
but he-
administrative stuff.
Well, but then again, what's the difference between
Yeah,
that
and that,
and city council?
yeah, I agree.
Well, but here's the point.
You know,
it's
It's like your
informal.
coffee. It's like your coffee.
Yeah, it's informal, it's completely
It's
driven by the
Do you know
people
what, the
attending.
one time, and just, I don't know if you were there, wouldn't you, when we had something over there, and it was more like a safety, it was all about safety in your homes and different things, and that attracted a lot of people. The mayor was there, and then you had, police and I think fire. So that was more of an information session, but it was bringing people together.
Okay, so I mean, just to recap, I'd like the public availability. I would like the caveat for public safety concerns and the guest speaker.
That not include the free, you know, the open,
No,
not doing anything with that, or you're eliminating.
no, it's still here.
As long as it's on the agenda.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So Ben, if there's any other ideas we come up with or anything, touch base with you even, or is that again more discussion and didn't Okay.
So does this
I
have to
mean,
be,
if one of you has a different idea you want me to write up, like,
Mhm.
if one of you has a different idea that you want me to write up, I can write it up for you.
so does this have to be tabled,
Well,
or?
no, I
No.
mean, hold on one second.
Oh.
I want to give the administration, the mayor, a chance to weigh in as well. If they'd like to weigh in, please do so.
Yes, I'm listening. From my experience in city government, I don't believe government officials we may not silence the speech because a citizen criticizes us. I also think that it's up to this public body that you can limit your meetings to specified subject matters. That's what I believe. That is in your power to do that. But I'm here to serve the people. I'm here to try to do the best job I can to better our community. A meeting is here to conduct public policy, take care of city business, make decisions, agree to disagree, vote, and go forward. But as I said, I don't really believe government officials can silence a speech, okay? Because a citizen criticizes us. That's something that comes along with the job. And again, my only other feeling really is it's up to this public body that you have the right to limit your meetings to specified subject matters. As for myself and for availability, I think I've been in office for almost 3 years. I can't tell you the number of people that we have responded from our city administration and resolving situations, requests, problems, concerns that we have handled through walk-in or on the phone, or have met people personally because of an issue that they wanted to discuss. For myself, I believe I take great pride
and responding to the people who reach out to me for questions, concerns. I try to resolve what I can. If not, we have an administration, we have department heads that we can work with to try to, answer that question or that situation. May not have the answer all the time for everybody. I know I can't please everybody all the time. But as for myself and for our administration, there isn't a day that goes by that we don't resolve something for a citizen. Whether it's a recreation request or whether it is, tree limbs or power lines or the issue they're still trying to help with you, Ms. Holloway, on our water issues that we have. That doesn't go away. Mr. Bloomberg, I've responded to you in the past, okay? And I've been civil with you. And there are some things I may not be able to respond to you on. In regards to the park, that is still something that is in a planning stage as to what we're going to do up there with Bitzer. Certainly opened up the memorial so you can really see and take pride in that memorial now. But I don't want to detract from that. I go back to this public body. It is your prerogative to have specified items to be addressed on, that's the way I feel, for going before council. But we also have other avenues, and whether it's walk-in or whether we respond to your home or your concern, that if there's an issue that is burning for you, it can be addressed in one way or another. And that's how I feel. Always try to be responsive and reply to people in the best way that I can. Main thing is to reply to all my emails or phone calls within a 24, 48-hour period, if at all possible. I don't like to leave people hanging, things like that, for an answer. Again, if I don't have the answer, I try to direct them to the right course of action. But part of being in this business is again, I'll say it again, I don't believe government officials, we may not silence the speech of our citizens because it criticizes us. It's not something that I would say, not something I would entertain or I like, but I understand being in the position I am. This is what happens sometimes. And people are very emotional about items, concerns, but hopefully level heads will prevail. And we can work to and resolve a situation civilly and in a trustworthy and honorable manner. That's
From the administration side, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. Mayor is an elected official, and all of you elected officials, you do sign up for this. And Jamie, I do appreciate you giving the acknowledgement to the hired professional staff of the city. There are things that we don't sign up for. We want a job, and we want to do a good job for this city. And you do hear times, I appreciate all this discussion tonight about people speaking at the podium. But even tonight, you heard an attack on an employee of the city to his credentials, his ability to do his job. And, I myself was subjected to that when I started here, my questioning from the podium, my ability. And, it's hard enough from the HR side for me to attract, retain, motivate employees, want them to stay here. They can go anywhere at work. Talent is hard to get today and it's hard to keep. So I really appreciate you looking into what is being said or not being said, at the podium, especially when it does turn to the personal attacks. The people that work for the city want to do a good job. We just really want to do a good job. So I really appreciate that and saying that and considering the employees as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mayor, I want to follow up on, I think some of your points we'll take. I think we're all in this business. We're all big boys and big girls. We understand that when you're elected, you're going to take criticism.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really prefer that. I guess I should. Let me just take it first. We're going to take criticism. What I personally, I speak for no one else here, I will not abide with a liar. There is no room public policy for people who knowingly misrepresent the facts. May debate the facts. I know we're not always going to disagree. Mr. Matheny and I don't always agree. We're not at each other's throats. We're not impugning each other's reputations. The fact of the matter is, the only thing we're going to have when we walk out of this room will be our reputations. At the end of the day, that's it. So I've staked out my position on this. To tone it down, clean it up, and get on with the business of the public's business here in this community. We're elected to do. And if you've got a question or a complaint, I'm happy to take it. Done.
Do we need to have a motion? Do we need to do a table? What do we
Full
need to
motion.
do?
Move it to the agenda.
I think you
Well,
need a
this-
motion to put it on the agenda, correct?
We would, although you guys had implied you wanted me to make a different draft before we
Just go ahead.
did
Just do it.
something. I would
Just hold it off.
Okay.
Hold off.
May I
Make sure we have the.
So we'll wait.
also,
Yes, please.
To do what?
so
Yes, it wants to make a-
I certainly appreciate everyone who has, commented and implied about personal statements made about me. And I would have to say that how I approach this is from that lens of, to me, I feel we have a problem, given that someone felt comfortable tonight intimating to you all, my superiors, that I have led you to violate Chapter 8 of the Ohio Revised Code, which does not exist. There is no Chapter 8, there is no Title 8, there is no Chapter 800, there is no Chapter 18, there is no Chapter 1800. All of the Ohio Revised Code chapters are in hundredth increments, just like our code. So a Chapter 8 would be impossible. There is a Title 7, which applies to municipalities. And in that Title 7, you are required to set your rules by ordinance. And we have set our meetings by ordinance, which I did find with a very simple Google up here on the screen. Quite literally, the first section of our code of our chapter relating to the legislature is when our regular meetings are. And just in case anybody wants to question if there's a Title 8, here's the Ohio Revised Code on your screen, 579. Go into the titles, chapters are 700, 700. So to me, I feel we've reached a problem given that people feel comfortable making blatantly false statements on the record. Similarly, it was said that all other municipalities codify their rules. 4 of the 6 municipalities in Stark County do not codify their rules. I am not sure that limiting will stop this, but I feel that this is evidence that our current system has a flaw, and we need to try and find some sort of middle ground to disincentivize that type of behavior.
Something to add to that. Daryl, you talked about, and I think maybe Stephanie touched on it as well, the implications for falsities at the podium as far as the city as a whole. Not that I ever want to lose Ben here. In fact, I think I have nightmares about the possibility of him leaving the city of North Canton, but one would think, and again, maybe I toss this back down to our resident HR expert, if a future employer finds YouTube videos where his abilities are called into question, that is certainly a problem. And allowing them to perpetuate are certainly a problem.
We discussed it in meetings. I mean, it was brought up by other candidates.
Yeah.
I've seen your meetings.
And so he might not look to leave us tomorrow. Hopefully he doesn't. But 5, 10, 15 years down the road, that's a problem. in the world we live in, you can Google just about anything and everything about anybody. So that's it. Just something that just popped in my mind after your comments. And thank you for sharing your comments, Ben.
So we can come back to Rule 37. Do I need to read anything? Do I need to table it? Do I need to?
We could postpone it until next time.
Okay. Yes, please.
Move we postpone further discussion of Rule 37.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Moving on to department reports. Deputy Director of Administration, Catherine.
Thank you, President Stroya. So, got some good the operational news here to report. 10th Street. I talked to our city engineer just before I left the office today. North Star has reached what is known as substantial completion, so 99% done. And they're putting the top coat down and the finish, just finishing up some manholes and striping by Thursday. That means that it will be 100% complete before school starts. School starts Friday. And that's been a big issue with the 10th Street, but the people will tonight be able to get back in driveways and it will be completely done. So that's good. Also, Big Court, which is, behind McKinley, in between McKinley and Main Street. It's that small way between Pitzer and Bechtel. They ground that down and then they stopped work there just because we had the Main Street Festival going on. So they paused their work there last week. But the street department got out there today and that's one of the new projects with the paver that equipment that you approved. And you'll get to see the results of what they can do then. And they're going to get Baker Court done by the end of this week. Then also, Rob wanted me to report to you that next week paving will begin on Glenwood. And he'll have the crews will be out there working on that. This weekend, the Main Street Festival was very successful. Chamber President Carrie Burke and her entire chamber team did an excellent job. Lots of people brought into our beautiful city. 720 Market was top notch. Food market vendors were all great. We don't have the final numbers in yet, but the door sales had to be pretty substantial. The lines were long. Everyone was happy. We're having a wrap-up meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m., bringing all the city team together, police and fire, streets, parks, and everybody asking what went well, what could be improved upon for next year. So we'll have that meeting tomorrow, and want to mention a few names, just, so saying thank you to everybody out there. It's, all of our street department with Matt Morrow's team. We've got the guys that have to open the streets, close the streets. They clean the streets at the end. They run the street sweeper. We've got Carl Redinger and Matt Gerber and Steve Shank's team and Tanner Davis and I think pretty much Todd Reed did the electrical when needed. He came down and I hope he got the inflatables going.
He did.
So that was his first Main Street Festival. Just want to say the other events coming up, the chocolate walk that the chamber's doing is coming up September 24th. And then another big festival we're going to have is the New Berlin Fest on October 8th. And that again will be a festival put on by the chamber and their team. And so if the Main Street Festival is any inclination what they can do, it should be a great success as well. That's all I have to report.
On Glenwood, if I may ask, when do you see a completion date for that?
Didn't get a completion date, just said they were going to be beginning next week.
I
So
talked to
we
a
can talk
couple
about it.
residents, and they were very happy.
Mhm.
One of the residents said, I couldn't get into my driveway for a total of 90 minutes,
Whoa, wow.
which is really good, and this would have been a person who would have really complained, but they were all happy. The curbs that we put up there look very nice.
Yeah.
And it's coming along real nice.
And our city street crew did form those up, and then they
Yeah.
did the slip form with the curbs, and that was a great
That was a
collaboration.
big job.
Good to hear. I'll pass it along to everybody.
Thank you. Director of Finance, Gina. Mayor Wander.
Thank you, President Stroya. Thank you for no report. I think our discussion earlier helped handle the audit. And thank you for your team for getting that prepared and the final report. Thank you very much for doing that. If you'll bear with me, I'd like to just go back in time here a little bit in the month of July. Again, we had a very successful, safe 4th of July parade and activities. And Fourth of July run, about 1,300 participants, I think, participate in that. I want to thank the police department again. They sponsored the North Canton Police Department Bicycle Safety Rodeo. And our good partner, Zion Lutheran Church, was a location for that. We had a great turnout for those kids for safety rodeo. Thank you again, Chief Kemp. On the 19th of July, I had a very good meeting with Industrial Commercial Property, ICP representatives, and IRG, Industrial Realty Group representatives, as we're continuing regarding the future development of the Hoover District. So we did have a meeting on that. We're still going forward with future meetings on that. I want to thank Ben Young again. Ben presented on the 21st at the North Canton Rotary. Did a wonderful presentation on transparency in government and really highlighting on the avenues of communication that are available through our city of website or Facebook or other means of communication. So again, Ben, thank you for doing that. You know, we had the Hoover Festival down there at the Hoover Farm or the Hoover Pavilion. That was on the 24th, very successful. Again, we were very involved with our police department and fire department with Safety Town. The JCs brought that back again this year. That was the 25th or the 28th. And of course, you know, if you haven't been down to the farmers market, again, we're hitting a home run there every Wednesday from 3 to 6. I want to thank Jenna Grossman and her team. I'm down there on the Wednesdays. We're getting people from all over the county there and outside the county to come to that farmers market. You know, when you look into August, I'd just like to recap on the 3rd and 5th and August 10th and 12th. The city administration, along with the assistance of Ben Young, our Clerk of Council, and Kevin Koblenz, and Jennifer Cross, we participated in the Tom Todd. It's a nonprofit youth organization for youth development for our middle school students. And we did that for 2 weeks. And our good partner at Community Christian Church had that as our home base. And we had a chance to hear from the children for brainstorming ideas on goals and creating ideas for our community and to learn the process of taking an idea to reality. And we took them through some city government there. And also this year, we awarded all the kids participation certificates, and that was a real treat. They really enjoyed that. On August 11th and 12th, if you're not aware, it was Wishes Can Happen, was celebrating their 40th anniversary with WHBC and Mix 94.1. And I had the opportunity to present a proclamation to Miss Cindy Morrow, who is a North Canton employee, business and resident. And if you'll bear with me, I'm just going to read a couple portions of that proclamation, just to make you aware. Whereas Wishes Can Happen is celebrating their 40th anniversary of granting wishes to children with life-threatening illnesses in Ohio, playing a vital role as an exceptional nonprofit organization. And whereas since its founding in 1982, Wishes Can Happen flourished under the visionary leadership of Cindy Morrow and Linda Lippert, who have dedicated themselves to serving others. And whereas corporate and educational and faith-based communities in and around Stark County continue to support the Wishes Can Happen by celebrating another milestone with the 15th anniversary of its Calling All Heroes Wish-a-thon and granting the wishes to local kids. And whereas Wishes Can Happen plays a vital role in putting a smile on the face of their wish children and creating a happy memory for their families. And whereas Wishes Can Happen has granted over 15,000 wishes since 1982 through the support of its donors, relying solely on the compassion and generosity of private donors and corporate sponsors to fund their. And whereas throughout its 40 years of bringing special joys and memories to children and young adults facing life-threatening illnesses, Wishes Can Happen has maintained excellent assessments as a nonprofit organization, managing its financial health through stability, efficiency, and sustainability, and its commitment to governance and practice policies. And I think, whereas most of all, folks, the attention of the families seeking the support and generosity of wishes can happen has driven them to expand their services for new wishes of children who have endured cancers, organ transplants, and other serious illnesses that have caused them to be fight for their lives. So now, therefore, be it proclaimed, I, Stephen B. Wilder, Mayor of the City of North Canton, on behalf of the city, did proclaim August 11th and 12th, 2022, as Wishes Can Happen, calling all heroes wish-a-thon anniversary days. I had the opportunity to present that on the radio on the 11th to Miss Cindy Morrow, and thanking her for all they did, and also WHBC and All Care and Mix 94.1 for chairing this event for 15 years. So I wanted that to be read in the record because already they've raised about $230,000 this year. They've completed 35 wishes so far, and they're on par for another 35 just for the future. So, folks, we are very fortunate to have an organization like this in this county. And working with our hometown university, with Washington University, Chief Kemp and myself, we assisted Dr. Tim Collins and his team in preparing a welcoming video for welcoming new students to Washington University and our community. And that was a lot of fun. We did it in the rain, but the Washington University was very happy that we could cooperate and understand the synergy that we have between the two of us, the city and Washington University. And of course, thank you, Catherine, for talking about the Main Street Festival. I would have to estimate we probably had 4,500 people here throughout the day, I would say, and probably 1,500 to maybe 2,000 people at the concert. And we came through without any major events, whether, for safety or for first aid or anything like that. I also want to thank Tracy Cole, an administrative assistant, Ben Young, our council clerk, and council members John Orr, Dave Matheny, Jamie McLeister, Matt Stroya, and a special visit from Christina Wyrick, who's recovering from a surgical operation procedure for participating in a one-on-one with the citizens that day. That was very worthwhile. I enjoyed being there with everyone. We had a great opportunity to listen and also try to understand the needs that was shared with us, or the compliments that were shared with us, giving us an opportunity to be engaged with the community. And of course, thank you for our city personnel, as Catherine mentioned, for all they did in our setup and tear down and clean up. Sunday morning, it was a clean ride going to church that day. Also, I want to bring you up to date on some of the new businesses that we have in town. I know the hours are late, but I want you to know that what's been going on since the first of the year. We've been very fortunate for Darcy Friel Realty. She's updated her certificate of occupancy. Shell Coffee is in town now, and state termite officers have relocated down on South Main Street. Heritage Villas are under new ownership. Those are the apartments over on Pittsburgh, 905 Pittsburgh, that area. Charity Viscount, she has a new upscale resale shop up on North Main Street. And Marshall Properties, they're new owners of the apartments. Those are the ones right across from Logan Sports, if you're not aware of that. M&H Beans now is at 706 South Main. They just opened this last week. They're right there next to Pab's, back in the corner. They're roasting coffee. Age Vision is up is out on East Maple Street now, under new ownership by Washington Square there. Spirit Halloween, if you haven't noticed, it moved into that corner where Ollie's used to be. It's a temporary, about 30 to 45 day occupancy there at the Acme Click Plaza up there. Jeff Sherrick has a new taxation business now. That was the Lions Mark, I think, the building right next to Bill and Mary's. He has a new business there. And of course, Charlie's Cheesesteak moved into the old Wendy's. Image 360 is a hair salon that's right up there in the Plaza, with Acme Plaza. They have 11 stations there for employees. Summit Ambulance, if you're not aware, they're down at the old glass station down there on Porty. Look, Lavoie Venetian Plaster, they're right there on 40th Street, right next to Ben Bush's. They got that front building there, they've moved in. And of course, Palumbo's is adding some retail and work there at his kitchen. Also, Tremont Coffee opened up, if you haven't been over there, a very unique specialty of theirs. And our good friend up at Pod Weiser, they're expanding a little bit up there. And Quality Heating and Cooling, you know, they came in, they brought in about 35 employees now. And there's a new place there, again, Studious Beauty, okay? They're up on South Main Street and, or excuse me, yeah, South Main Street. And Whole Lotta Love Coffee, our cafe, they opened up this year. Thank goodness for Beth Humbert and her team. And if you haven't seen Swish 365, they've expanded their basketball training facility over there. And of course, there's Mag Health and Wellness. They're down there on 1177 South Main Street. I think Palumbo's also took over the 1320 Cafe. They're going to do some work out of there. So things are happening in the city. New businesses are coming in, and that's a good thing. In closing, where's a smile? Come on, where's a smile? In closing, just remember this Friday, our grades 1 and 3 and 6 and 9 are going to go back to school. So just remember the bus laws. Okay, watch our school zones. Watch those little kids going to and from school. And that's on this Friday, again, grades 1 to 3, 6 and 9. And then on Monday, the 22nd, grades 4 and 5, 7 and 8, and 10 through 12, they'll start school. So school zones are 20 miles an hour, and just pay close attention to our school crossing guards, because I tell you what, if there's one hard job to have in the city, you get out there and you step out in front of traffic and try to stop and hold out a flag when you have people disregarding, okay? That safety procedure. So, again, thank you for indulging me for the opportunity to share these things, because it's been a little while since we've met, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Ben, Clerk of Council.
I will do my best to be brief. So first, as probably obvious to everybody, I was asked to rearrange a little during break, so I took the opportunity to make some upgrades, such as the second TV. We also replaced a lot of older wires that had been beaten up back when the dais got taken out and put together and taken out. We are almost done. There is still one wire left to be replaced, but we're almost there. Second, on our NC Sun Communications project, the next step was the paper newsletter. I left a copy at all of your seats. We were handing them out at the Main Street Festival, and I have about 200 left. So if you have neighbors that need them, please come see me. Along that same vein, for the public communications project, I was giving you all monthly public communications reports. As may be obvious to you, there was not one in your packets today. That is because they have now gone live online. So you, the public, anybody can go access all of our public communications reporting data and how well or poorly we're doing at getting our newsletter into people's hands. And that is my report.
Ben, thank you for the mural.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Really nice. A lot of work into that. We appreciate it.
So adjusted the height so I don't bang my knees every time I scoot my seat in. So thank you. Yeah.
Yes, it is 2 inches higher.
Makes a huge difference. All right, let's go to council reports. Ward 1, Jamie.
All right, thank you very much. And actually, I'll be very, very brief this evening, because all three of the items that I wanted to discuss was already touched on by the mayor. So I guess first and foremost this weekend, I just want to give a big shout out to all of the people within the city, administration, our council clerk, Ben, who participated. It was a great event. I personally enjoyed being able to be out there and work the city booth and meet with the city constituents. So that was absolutely fantastic. Wanted to also give a big shout out to the chief of police and as well as his team. As a cyclist, a triathlete myself, I think bike safety is huge. I think we were, at least for a while, one of the few people in the neighborhoods that made our kids wear helmets, and we certainly heard about it initially, but I think it's just great to see bike safety being promoted. I certainly can't wait to next year. So that was a fantastic event. And lastly, he also mentioned, while one may construe this may not be Ward 1 news, I will say that they are my neighbors. So I want to give a big congratulations to my friends Mike and Hannah, who own M&H Beans that opened up next to Pavs. So definitely stop in and check them out. So that's my report.
Thank you, Jamie. David, Ward 2.
Okay, so as chairman of public safety, Ms. Farina, I don't think anybody could say it better. The people that you brought up for, the Main Street Festival, so many people working behind the scenes. Albeck, your team working behind the scenes on this. Congratulations on another awesome, glowing report on the audit. A lot of work goes into that because behind the scenes, people don't see it. When you go through 245 pages of a report and looking at all the detail and the data, it was a lot to go through, and I have many questions that I would like to just understand more, but there is so much involved there. And Ben, thank you. Working behind the scenes, gathering the data, putting the information together for us, always being accessible for those of us that have some difficulties on the computer side of work. Thank you for that.
Of course.
And then to Chief Kemp, in your world, I think it's great that the opioid money is going to the safety resource officers. They are an important part of our community. And with school starting, as the mayor had mentioned, the safety in that around the school areas, we need to be cautious, and we need to make sure that people are driving safe, keeping our kids safe also. So that is my report.
Thank you. Stephanie, Ward 3.
Just as the finance chair, I appreciated her being able to come online and Zoom with us, even having COVID. It's just such a great tool and opportunity to be able to share that again. And what a great report. Kind of like you said, Dave, I can't imagine doing that. Matt's like, that's what I do. I'm like, I know, I still don't get it. So line after line. So thank you very much for what you do. And Kathy and Ben, just to our administration, it is true. People don't realize, I guess, all the work it takes these days to keep people in our employment. And we see it, and I'm on many workforce development meetings and board meetings, and it is a really tough situation that we have in our community. So the fact that we can attract and retain is so important. And I think that's why we want our image, the responsibility to keep legislating and do it productively and fairly and with integrity. That's why it's so important. So thank you, because it reflects it all the way down. So thanks. And the Main Street Festival, again, I'm fortunate to go to a lot of different festivals, mainly because they're right across the street from me. And this one is just amazing with what we do. And really topped off a great Hall of Fame weekend with all the visitors and tourism. And they go kind of all hand in hand. And you just get this collective energy where people are very proud to be from our area. People that came in town, I got to meet a number of them right before the game. And they're like, we love your community. I'm like, you do? Like at first, you're kind of surprised because they're coming from amazing locations and they're football players or they own big companies from California or different things, and they're here supporting the enshrinement people. And they're like, I've never met a more friendly town that is so willing to be so hands-on and just continue to give back. And I think that's what we do, and that's what leadership is. It's making others see that process. So thanks. We're on a good run.
Right. Thank you, Stephanie. John, Ward 4.
Ward 4. Well, first thing, thank you, Mayor. You put in a lot of hours Saturday, a lot of hours, and thank you so much. Ben, those 2 drawings were great. Thank you for posting those.
That's Captain. That's all Captain.
Great job. That's a great job. And if it's anything like our last park that we opened up, it'd be great. Did we get much play on the survey?
Over 200.
Over 200.
Just under 200.
Oh,
Just under 200? That's great, that's great. Ward 4, a lot of action. Glenwood, thank you again. We paved, I believe, Sunset and Don. They look beautiful, but I think something happened and the skunks were woke up or something, and we've had several complaints about skunks.
You sent them over to our board last night.
And
Thank you.
Matt and I are at
Thank
Fort Worth,
you.
and there's a lot of skunks, and there's someone who trapped them and has spent quite a bit of money on on getting rid of them and stuff. And she was worried about the kids going to school in the morning and these skunks, but, hopefully, no phone calls the last 3 days on that, but, we got it hit in our heart, at our house the other night, and it was pretty bad. And Matt, I think you had it a little bit.
Yep.
But, we had some great discussion tonight, some great discussion, and we need more of that great discussion here. And, that's all that's happening in Ward 4, but thank you.
Thank you, John. Daryl?
I'd just like to take the next 15 or 20 minutes.
Daryl, your wife's calling.
I want to thank Ben for renting these 2 screens so I don't have to look at McLeister during.
Oh, jeez, the truth comes
I'm
out.
haunted by his voice, but I'm blind to his face. That's it.
All right.
I'm gonna remember that.
Yeah, he took my line about 15, 20 minutes. I think between what everybody has said already, I'll just end it and say buy and support local. Meeting calendar coming up on August 22nd. We have a city council meeting. Then we have the the 5th Monday. Then we have Labor Day. And then September 12th, we have a regular city council meeting. September 19th, we have a committee of the whole meeting, and September 26th, we have another regular council meeting. We may need to double up on one of those, but we'll see about that. That being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
All in favor?
There's no second.
Oh,
No, second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, it drives me